statement. We don't need more politicians, we need statements.
I have two questions. Number one, are you all running for the same office?
We are.
Against each other?
We are.
And have you thought about running for president? State?
One thing at a time. Let's clean up. Let's clean up. Let's clean this up. And next thing next. But I do want to mention to everyone in the room, I do have 3 children, and I could use all of your prayers when I'm out on the road. In a couple of weeks, I'll be in D.C. And I would like for you all to submit any questions, comments, concerns that you would like for me to take to D.C. Well, what I'm going to do is tally up maybe the top 3 issues that Tennessee, across the state that I'm traveling before I go, to voice what your concerns are while I'm in D.C. So I'll make sure you can get in touch with me. You can send me an email, send the campaign an email. Just tell me what your concerns are so that I can take them back with me when I travel to D.C. Also, I could use your prayers. Being a mother, my children, I love my children, and I'm doing this for your children and for my children too. So, please, if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to.
I have a question
Yes,
for you.
sir.
And this is for anybody here. You may have heard today, maybe you didn't, but Obama signed a law. It could have been an executive order, but I understood it was a law on Thursday that was obviously approved by Congress, let's say, that gives the Secret Service power to determine where you can assemble, where you can protest, where you can speak. And if you violate where you are assigned by the Secret Service, it's not a misdemeanor, it's a felony. And this applies to people that the Secret Service guards, like Obama and Biden. And I just heard briefly this morning, Judge Napolitano on Fox was talking about this morning, and I was partially listening to it, so I didn't hear it all. And I've talked to other people, nobody knew about it. Is this, anybody know anything about this?
I briefly heard that, but what happened is Rand Paul just issued his fiscal report, so I was busy trying to thumb through that. It's about 100 pages, so I didn't get through it. So I said, well, which do I try to read? It's an interesting report. Senator Jim DeMint is supporting that. So I did get a chance to try to start reading it. I would encourage you all to start reading it. I will post something once I finish reading it, because Senator DeMint definitely supports it. I want to see what he has outlined in his proposal and see, pretty much I do support Rand Paul as well, but that's what I was focusing on the last few
So you weren't
years.
focusing on not the...
Well, not that
You're not
it
answering my question, right?
matter. I don't know enough
Okay, that's fine.
today.
You were talking about another subject. That's fine.
Yes.
Okay. And you were obfuscating the issue.
Yep.
That's fine.
Yeah, I haven't heard that it was signed. I knew it was in debate.
It's not an executive order, it's a law.
It's not an executive order.
Okay, okay. Well, how can I get
So
you
I knew it was.
the House, huh?
Yeah, if you really paid it, if people paid attention during the National Defense Authorization Act, it was very scary to hear the comments that were coming out of the floor of the Senate. We had Senator McCain and Lindsey Graham talking that they would round you up in a heartbeat if you were tied to Al Qaeda. Now, who's going to say that you are tied to Al Qaeda? Or maybe it's the Tea Party, because we know that we were called terrorists, right? But somehow the Occupy insert city is somehow the favored group, right? Those are the true terrorists. So I didn't hear that it was signed, but I know that what we have here, as someone used to say, what we have here is a failure to communicate.
Yeah, really.
And the failure to communicate is really understanding what the Constitution is. You see, the Constitution outlines that the role of government, its number one role, is to uphold and protect our unalienable rights.
Right.
I ask you, and the National Defense Authorization Bill, SOPA that the House and the Senate, or PIPA that the Senate was entertaining, this bill that the Secret Service could identify an area that is now a secure spot. Who does that protect? Are we setting this up where it's more like a monarchy?
Yeah.
And the Senate is more of just a face piece? You see, if we don't uphold this entire thing, then none of it means anything. That's like Bob Corker voted for Jesse Furman on the court bench, federal court bench. And Jesse, he doesn't believe in the Second Amendment, that we should have the right to bear arms. Now people say, now Zach, do you believe that people should have a tank? Well, you know what? What is the purpose of the right to bear arms? The right to bear arms was put in there so that the people could protect themselves against tyranny.
Yeah.
You know what? I think we need a couple drones.
Hey,
Right?
Yeah.
So I'll find out though. I haven't, to answer your question, I haven't heard it. If
Nobody
it's
else has said
signed,
yes, right?
if it was signed, man,
Yeah.
this has been, that should tell you where our leaders are at too.
Yeah.
Because they're allowing this stuff to happen and not say anything. If you're complacent, you're a contributor to the destruction of this country.
Yeah.
And if we don't hold people accountable, who will? God will hold us accountable, I can tell you that.
Amen. Yeah.
Yes,
I think we've all seen the news this week about the soldier in Afghanistan who killed the people over there. Where do y'all think that we are now with Afghanistan? What would you like to see as U.S. senators happen right now, if you were in office right now, happen in Afghanistan? What would you like to see our government do?
Well, we should, with the technology that we have, anytime that we have something that is of national security, what we must do is go through the proper procedures. Which the proper procedure is to have Congress issue a declaration of war. And when you issue a declaration of war, you use the full might and force of the United States of America, and we start taking out square miles. You see, peace through strength was President Reagan's motto. And when you're decisive on your action, your enemy knows exactly how you'll respond. And what confuses everybody is this wishy-washy foreign policy. We have the foreign policy, and it's right here. The Constitution of the United States.
Right.
If it's a threat, we have a declaration of war, we take the threat out, we go home. There's no reason to have boots on the ground. I found it very ironic that when I was in the military, that I was sent to protect the borders of Kuwait during the first Gulf War. Yet we will not protect the borders of the United States.
Exactly.
Or the seaports. And that's where all of the stuff is coming in. And we have to use our soldiers, our technology, to defend this nation, to provide the common defense. And we use all of our might elsewhere.
What I would do is, first of all, I would want to know, what is the mission? That's what I would want to know. I would want them to say, has the mission been redefined? And if it has been redefined, from what to what? And after that, if we are there to protect America's interests, I say we stay. But if we're there to build roads and schools and become just another arm of humanitarian service, I say bring our troops home. Period.
Yeah. We're not released.
But we're not. So that's what I would do. I would want to know what is the purpose, what is the goal, how are we measuring our goal, have we achieved our goal? And it's pretty simple. If we're there to protect our interests here in the United States, I say we stay to complete the mission. If we're there just as another humanitarian effort, bring the troops home.
I mean, we just saw an example. I mean, burning Korans, according to their own religion, desecrating the Koran. And so it was supposed to burn it. Well, that's what so, and then they ended up killing 600 guys.
Is that so?
These people crazy over there. They don't- I mean,
And again, what has the mission changed from and to? It's really, it's not as complicated, I believe, as we may believe.
There's one thing for sure is that we only go into war with the Declaration of War.
yeah.
The only time that we deploy anything in absence of that is to protect commerce. If we go back and look at Thomas Jefferson, when he was dealing with the Islamic pirates that were attacking our ships and preventing our trade from going from nation to nation, that has an impact. That's impacting our ability to trade with other nations. He sent our naval forces to protect our merchant ships. He didn't set troops on the ground in those areas. He sent the full purpose was to protect the trade that was going on. We have to be very specific in our actions and decisive and be clear. So
What are your feelings on the U.S. and the UN? Getting the U.S. out of the UN?
I think we should fund any money to the United Nations.
American organization, and we fund them, use our American tax dollars so that they can spew all types of anti-American propaganda. And you know what? I don't want to silence them. Raise your own money to talk about us.
Yeah. Yeah. We're paying them.
You know,
Raise your own money.
22% of the budget
Yeah.
is paid by the United States of America, and I think Japan is the only closest in percentage to us. One is that the United Nations it's not in here. So we need to get the U.S. out of the UN and the UN out of the U.S. We have right now, there will probably be 3 treaties that will come to the United States Senate, and they're going to try to do it this year, especially if they believe that Barack Obama will be defeated and they will lose the Senate. And the 3 treaties will be the Small Arms Treaty, which is a treaty that Hillary Clinton's been working on, under the disguise that it will protect us because the terrorists will not be able to get the weapons in these countries that signed up for this treaty. Of course, we know that gun control only hurts the law-abiding citizens like you and I. In fact, in Tennessee, if you're elected to the Tennessee legislature, Tennessee has a law in the Constitution that says there can be no gun control passed unless it's proven that it will reduce crime. How smart was that? Right? That's what. But so that's one, and that's going to come. So it does matter who is a United States Senator, because not only do they vote on legislation, but they vote to ratify these treaties. How many have heard of the Rights of the Child Treaty? That is a direct attack against parental rights and what we can teach our children and what we will have to teach our children. And the other one is LOST, the Law of the Sea Treaty. And that's already come to the Senate once before, but it looks like it's going to make its rounds again. And what it is, you think redistribution of wealth, most people are thinking that that's redistribution of American rich to American poor. Make no mistake, the redistribution of wealth that's going on right now is American rich across the globe. And the LOST Treaty is a redistribution of American technology, because we will have to share it with our enemies. And those are just 3 examples. That's why the UN must go, because they're working against our inalienable rights at every turn.
What do you know about the pipeline? The pipeline, will it go through people's private property, and do they have to give up some of their property to let this pipe go through it? Are they being paid as a pipe up above ground, below ground? How does that work, do you know?
Yeah, my understanding of the XL pipeline is that just like when in Nashville, when they put in the 840 bypass, right? That's land that will be purchased for that goal in mind.
But
There
if
will be-
someone else's land and they'll be forced to sell?
Yeah, they'll take
That's
like,
not good.
they'll use the, eminent domain.
It's no good.
Right. Well, and I haven't heard of any, of all the reports that I've read, Brenda, you can say, but I haven't heard any property owner say that they were against the XL pipeline.
Okay.
Which leads me to believe that they're okay with selling their land for that purpose.
I have not read of any reports where private citizens' property was confiscated for this Keystone Pipeline. Now, will property owners be offered some type of compensation if the pipeline has to come through their property? I would think that's reasonable. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. However, I have not read of any complaints where private citizens said that their property was being actually taken.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be like a Democrat and just
Oh, no, I
go
haven't.
through people's property whether they want it or not.
Do you have a question? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
How do we get both of them to do it?
Wait until Alexander runs again.
What you'd have to do is vote early and vote often.
I'd like to hear y'all talk about the budget that we have been able to pass in a couple of years, and not just, like you were saying, tinker around the edges, but I mean, really make the deep cuts to balance the budget and begin to work on the debt. So, the deficit, I mean, it seems like what I keep hearing is they're working on reductions, but the reductions are just on the increases of the coming year. So that's never going to decrease anything. So we got to cut.
Hey, it's one thing that I'll encourage everybody is don't listen to the people that got us in this mess.
Yeah.
Right. So if they can add $1 trillion, actually, time Obama gets out, he will have added about $6 trillion to our debt in 4 years.
Right.
If we add that, that's $1.25 trillion a year. If we can add $1 trillion, almost $1.5 trillion a year, we can subtract $1.5 trillion a year. It is a game of the shuffleboard. When you say that we're going to balance the budget in 10 years, you can say what you will of some of the presidential candidates, and I'm not up here to endorse anybody, but there was only 2 presidential candidates that had bold solutions around taxes and what we should do about the budget. Ron Paul, even his $1 trillion cut isn't enough. We're still borrowing over $500 million. $500 billion. So we need to, one, eliminate every agency that is not constitutional.
Yes. Yes.
And then next we go to the agencies and say, are you effective? Are you efficient? Are you achieving what your original goal was? I know there's somebody in here that I just slipped my mind. When was the date and time that America became energy independent?
1974. Jimmy
Right,
Carter.
right. So we haven't, right? That's a trick question. We haven't become energy independent. One, the government doesn't need to be there. If the government wasn't involved, we would already have energy independence. I can guarantee you that. But what we have is 33 years, billions of dollars wasted, and we have yet to have American independent from any type of energy source. So we need to go through and say, if you're not, I come from a business world, and my specialty is looking at efficiency and effectiveness of companies and organizations. And one thing you do is, the secret in consulting is that if a business has been doing things for 5 or 10 years and they haven't looked at their processes, guaranteed 40% that you can snap like that you can cut. Because people get used to the way of doing things. There's technology advancements that could help efficiencies. And we're not doing any of that. So if there are things that we should be doing, we can do them more effective. So we have to do a combination of everything. And when I hear people say, well, Zach, Department of Energy, that's only $60 billion or whatever it is, that's small.